Welcome to KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice, and we're telling the stories of Kansas City nonprofits and the people behind them. KC Cares is the intersection of the nonprofit and profit communities, making Kansas City a better place to live, work, and play. This KC Cares segment is brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation, www.kauffman.org. I'm Ruth Bombigas. It's election season, and whether we are in a local, state, or national election cycle, it impacts nonprofits, including the area of fundraising. Well, to discuss the impact on and how nonprofits can be strategic in dealing with this season, it is KC Cares' own Dr. Philanthropy, Jeffrey Byrne of Byrne Pawlowski, and we're diving into elections. Jeffrey, great to have you back.
Thanks a lot, Ruth, and I'm really glad to be here. And it is definitely the crazy season, isn't it? For the next 49 days, I believe. 49 days to, the next few weeks.
It'll be a few weeks, but you know what? It seems like we're always in an election cycle. This is the big lift. And maybe a great place to start is there an impact on fundraising during an election season and cycle?
Well, before I get to that, since we are in election year, let me just back up a little bit. And the answer is no to that question. But let me back up first and give a little context about where we are in this time of the political year and the nonprofit year, ending in just a few months. Number one, Americans are the most generous people on the face of the earth, as you know, and we've repeated on this show. We give about $560 billion away to charity in 2023. And, nearly 49% of all households participate in charity. And about 23% of households volunteer. Now, both of those numbers, Ruth, are down historically from a few years ago. 66% of households gave to charity. And just about 20 years ago, nearly 27% of households volunteered. Really, volunteerism and giving is a bedrock of our democracy, and it makes us stronger. And we know if someone is giving to charity, that they probably are going to be giving to political campaigns as well. Certainly, anyone who's giving to a political campaign basically is going to be giving to charity. So that inverse and that correlates very well. I heard and read in the New York Times a few weeks ago that this election cycle, which is 2 years between the presidential race, the congressional races for Congress and Senate, and the different political action committees, nearly $20 billion will be given to candidates and candidate committees. $20 billion. That's a lot of money, Ruth, over a 2-year cycle. However, if you think about philanthropy over a 2-year cycle, over $1 trillion will be given to philanthropy. So, I hear from nonprofits that we work with that the donors are giving to political campaigns versus charity. And that's not really true. So let me back up and just make a few comments. Number one, I think that nonprofits who are interested in participating in public advocacy, that is advocating and educating their elected officials or their candidates who are running. And nonprofits can do that, Ruth. They can actively participate in informing, educating, and advocating for positions with candidates and elected officials. And we encourage all nonprofits to do that, because what do we do at the ballot box? We hire individuals to bring money back to our local communities, our counties, and our states from the federal government, and vice versa. So I think that that is very important, that we establish relationships with those who are elected. And normally, there could be a little bit of slippage on nonprofit fundraising for certain individuals that are perhaps less than 45. If individuals are less than 45, about 20% of them are less likely to give a charitable gift. Well, that means that 80% who are 45 and under are still giving charitable gifts. And about 8% overall are likely to give less in an overall campaign during an election year. However, I say that when we saw the Trump victory back in 2016, one thing that we saw was that causes which were progressive, maybe human rights, environment, social services, they all saw their dollars going way up during that 3-month period between the election and the inauguration. And then during the first year of the Trump administration in 2017, because progressives were worried about perhaps cuts in their programs, that they were benefits. And these nonprofits were pushing out messages of give and support our nonprofit. And I think that that's a really good strategy. We are nonpartisan at Byrne-Pawlowski, so in our work with nonprofits. However, I think there are opportunities for nonprofits to advocate if they have the right tools in place to do that during the election season. And I think that few things are technology is really important, that you have technology that works. Do you have social media? Do you have digital media? Do those combine in the old ways of supporting nonprofits through personal gifts and through direct mail as well? So I think there are a lot of opportunities to work together during this political season, but don't let the political season be a reason why you are not able to raise money, because this should be the best time of year during the fourth quarter.
I want to jump in here on something you said a little while ago. You were talking about 2016 and what happened in that campaign and then leading up to when President Trump actually took office. Are you hearing anything at this time? Because we do have former President Trump running again. And we don't want to dive too much into the politics, but I'm wondering, you've got someone who's a little more conservative, however you want to define that, versus liberal. Are you seeing? Because we should give our listeners and viewers a little secret. Mr. Byrne, Dr. Philanthropy, was involved in politics a ways back in his career. So he brings that to the table with him as an aside. So are we seeing anything right now?
Well, I think we are seeing a little bit of, politics affecting the nonprofit mindset around going after gifts during this time period. So I have a few thoughts about that. Number one, I think that as an organization, you've really got to make sure that you are ready through your technology to make sure that you are able, and your website, to make sure that you're able to have landing pages that are really working, that you are able to use that technology of reaching out, that you are using your technology to segment your database between prospects and donors, that you are using the right messaging, that you are having a call to action in those messages as well. So I believe that it's important that organizations still continue to do to meet their fundraising goals, to continue to roll out their plans, to get prepared for the fourth quarter, because we know end of the year giving appeals really works. I might suggest that you think about, if you normally drop your giving appeal in early November, that you drop your appeal in late October, that you might drop your appeal in mid-November. I would not drop it the first week of November. And even the last couple of weeks of October are going to be your mailboxes are going to be very full if you're using direct mail or if you're using electronic or social media. So I think right after the election, the following week, the following Monday, that it's a good time to start to implement those plans that you have for end of the year appeals. Also, a lot of organizations are going to start thinking about Giving Tuesday and the importance of preparing messaging and preparing your donors and preparing your website as well for receiving contributions and volunteer opportunities during Giving Tuesday, which is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving.
I want to ask, so it
Yes.
sounds like you're saying that actually elections really don't take away from what donors may be considering in the last quarter. That surprises me, that it wouldn't have impact. But I know that has this always been the case?
I believe that in my 36 years of participating and doing fundraising professionally, and I guess over 36 years, then I have gone through this is my 9th presidential election, possibly. Wow, I'm not that old.
That's right, you're not.
That at least during my professional career, that nonprofits are a little bit reluctant because they think that politics does compete with them. However, I'm going to go back and say what I've been saying for the last 20 years since I've been involved with Giving USA and research, is that the numbers don't reflect that perception. So the reality is, in a few age brackets, that you will see less participation in charitable giving because they are going to give to political causes. However, the vast majority of fundraising and the vast majority of donors still don't give to politics, and we should get them involved in our nonprofits. The correlation between politics and charity is that if you give to a political candidate, it's probably very likely that 75 or 80% of those individuals who give to political candidates also give to charity. So, a lot of nonprofits are afraid to talk politics with their donors. I don't believe you should be. I don't think you need to take a position, but it's good to know if your donor leans left or right, because then you can engage them on conversations, and that you also know what motivates them. Because if they're leaning left, then you know that that progressive causes, environment, social services, and some choice issues are very important to those individuals and those causes. So you can talk about those. If your organizations lean right, then also the inverse of those about social services and perhaps education, healthcare, are important to those donors as well. I mean, there's not one donor size fits all, and there's not one source size fits all. but those are some opportunities. I say talk a little, introduce the topic and go with the flow. Don't take a position,
Right.
especially if it's going to alienate your donor, because that's not what we need to do. But we can talk about that with donors, and we shouldn't be afraid of that either.
We're talking to Dr. Philanthropy, Jeffrey Byrne, and we're talking elections and fundraising. In doing some of the research for today's show, one of the things I did find is that there seems to be in swing states. Now, that does play a little bit of a role, that donors in swing states are less likely to give to nonprofits during an election season. Why would that be?
Well, I think you have to, I looked at that article as well, Ruth, and I want to thank you for that. There are 113 million people that live in about 12 swing states. And the most important of those swing states right now are Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia. And what we understand if you live in those areas is that you need to manage expectations. Because you are bombarded right now with direct mail, with social media, and with door knocking and conversation in the coffee shops. So I think it's important that a nonprofit, number one, manage those expectations. I also think that, the people, 113 million people who are living in these swing states are so inundated that they might be less likely to give charitably during the next 40 plus days or so. So I would say then prepare for the week after the election to really get going. You have a little time to breathe before you have to sprint, basically, for the last 7 weeks of the year.
And we know we've talked about before on the show about how end of year giving is so important, how much comes in. So how do you strategize? We talk about elections. We will have a new president either way at the federal level, and we'll have some changes in Congress, but there's also state and local. How should nonprofits then be looking at the end of the year strategy, keeping in mind that January 20 something, when a new president is inaugurated, it's go. And it's first quarter. And I know first quarter is often a struggle also for nonprofits. Everybody's recovering from holiday spending and all of that. So how do you prepare? Should you prepare? What should you be looking at and for?
Well, I think you always should be thinking ahead 90 to 180 days out as a fundraiser. If you're worrying about today and your activities today, then you're not doing a good job, because you should already be on top of those details. You should know exactly what the next few weeks are that you need to do to fulfill whatever goals and objectives you have. But looking at 90 to 180 days is really what you need to think about. I would say that number one, I would congratulate those who won after the election. So your state representative, your state senator, your reelected or new congressperson, your reelected or your new United States senator. Those are all individuals that you can reach out to and start to develop a relationship with as an elected official. And if you have not contacted them during the campaign, you can now start contacting them and their staffs once the staffs are known, and create a contact. Then I think you need to start tailoring and targeting your message. What is your message? I think you have to diversify your outreach efforts as well. Are you exploring both online and offline channels of communications and also solicitations? Are you synchronizing both your mail and your digital? Because those should be synchronized today. So the message that you send out in mail should be the same, should be a complementary message that you're sending out in digital as well, so that you are layering, the opportunities. You layer opportunities and you layer different techniques on each other so that that donor has multiple ways of learning about you and hopefully giving in one of those ways. I think, are you using influencers? If you're a large organization, are you using influencers to help your organization and to help promote your organization as well? And I think also that you've got to look at your data and your analytics, and you have to be able to adapt and be resilient and to be able to move in different directions if you see your data and analytics not coming around to what the goals and objectives are. Then do we need to do, and what do you need to do to turn that around, to reposition yourself?
You got me thinking about, rather than elections having a perceived negative impact on fundraising, that it provides an opportunity. Please go ahead.
No, it really does. I just was on the phone a few minutes ago with Dr. Una Asili with the Lilly School of Philanthropy. And we were just talking about this very fact. And, Dr. Asili and the Lilly School and their research has found that elections really do not appear to decrease donations to a charity. So you've got to sort of confront that, and you've got to have some messaging points. Be sensitive with the donor who feels that he or she, I know a few donors who are giving very wildly to political candidates because they are so passionate on both sides of the left and right now. And maybe I would not necessarily try to have a hard sell on them right now because their focus is on November 5, But I think the week after November 5, and I think we're going to have a week election. We're not going to have a one-day election and probably know who our newly elected president is, whether it's left or right. But I think, that if you are preparing and planning, that you are able to hit the ground running. I'm always like, okay, I know what I need to do today. And then I know what I need to follow up with. And you can do that right now, but you can also start to think about, then what do I need to do in like 40 days from now? And, that gives you some breathing room. And, a lot of us don't have breathing room normally during the fourth quarter. We're all guns fired on those 12 weeks to the end of the year when we know that people feel most generous and that we're able, some organizations collect anywhere from 20 to 60% of their giving during this last 3 months. So you just need to be organized and you need to be thoughtful about your approaches and about your tactics.
I'm flipping it too. Instead of the fundraiser going to the donor and having a political conversation, what should the fundraiser, the organization, be prepared for if a donor asks, where do you stand? What's the view of an agency or a nonprofit? Because I could think that could be an uncomfortable conversation if you don't have your shtick together.
Well, I think if you're the ACLU or you're the Human Rights Campaign or you're the National Abortion Rights Action League, I think you sort of know what the donor who is your donor is going to think is going to be. I think if you contribute to pro-life choices, then you sort of know who that donor is going to be as well. I try to engage donors in the area of public policy and issues, and perhaps a little bit stay away from candidates unless I really know what their thoughts are. If I know what their thoughts are, then I'm going to query them, whether I believe that they're making the right choice or not. Because you know what? I'm interested in them, and I'm interested in why they're supporting the candidates that they're supporting, because that gives me insight also into their thinking that I can think about how they might think about charitable giving or charitable causes as well. So I don't see it as a downside to talk about politics, to talk about issues, and in some ways to talk about candidates. But I think need to be thoughtful. You don't need to be confrontational. I don't get into confrontation with with organizations and clients who have very strongly held views. I have very strong views about what I feel politically and about issues, but I let those go into the background when I'm doing my professional work. And I think that that's just how we do as professionals.
And as always, with advice you've given before, you've got to be a good listener, I would think. You've got to hear the voice of the donor to educate yourself as the fundraiser. Would that be fair to say? So you don't step in doo-doo or in the wrong place at the wrong time.
I agree. I think that, as I like to say, what is fundraising? Fundraising is 90% listening and 10% talking. And I find that when a executive director or director of development is out on a call, and if they feel comfortable with the causes and the talking points that they're doing, that they're relaxed, that they are not talking all the time, but they're asking open-ended questions, they are having a conversation with the donor, and that they are able to move that conversation along toward the ended goal. I never go into a conversation with any donor or donor prospect without having and knowing exactly what I want out of that outcome. But I also know that I don't need to talk a lot. And what I find is that when I am nervous and I might not know my facts, I might not know exactly as much as I would like to know about a cause, then I'll talk too much. But I think that if you know what your cause is, and all directors of development and CEOs know their causes, then they can have a conversation with the donor. They can ask questions. They can sort of help then respond to those questions and lead that donor and those conversations to the desired outcome, or at least the optimal outcome.
As always, great advice, great conversation. By the time we talk next, we'll at least know who our president is. Well, we'll get into the end of the year fundraising and how that's impacted by now who's in national leadership. Dr. Philanthropy Jeffrey, as always, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ruth. Good luck with voting. May the right candidates win.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us for KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice. We're produced by Charitable Communications, which is also a nonprofit. This KC Cares segment was brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation, www.kauffman.org. To be a guest on KC Cares or underwriting opportunities to support the work we do in the nonprofit community, visit our website at kccaresonline.org and spread the love. You'll find us on Facebook and Twitter at KC Cares Radio and Instagram at KC Cares Online. And don't forget, Saturday mornings at 8 a.m., you can catch us on ESPN 10 a.m., 94.5 FM. Thank you for joining us.